respect to Boko Haram, let me make it crystal clear. I don't know where the silence is. I have spoken out about Boko Haram any number of times, and what they have done with respect to the slaughter recently is a crime against humanity, nothing less.
Secretary of State John Kerry condemning the most recent massacre of thousands in Nigeria. As we welcome you back to America's Forum, J.D. Hayworth with Miranda Khan. And Miranda, the terrorist group Boko Haram has created a state of panic in that African nation following the recent killings and kidnappings.
Yeah, according to officials, the group massacred as many as 2,000 people this month. Yesterday, the group added to the death toll after taking nearly 80 hostages and killing some. 3 are according to recent reports, and we've just received word that 24 of those hostages have since been released. But the group's horrific acts have many questioning if they're becoming one of the most vicious of all the radical Islamic groups out there right now.
Let's go in depth now as we're joined by Virginia Comolli, research fellow at the International Institute for Strategic Studies. Virginia, Skyping in this morning from London. We certainly appreciate your time. Boko Haram, how significant is that terror threat from that terror group internationally?
Well, Boko Haram poses a very serious regional threat in West Africa, as events in Nigeria and Cameroon, but also Niger and Chad demonstrate. These are all countries in which Boko Haram has to different extent a presence. With regard to the broader threat the group may pose, I believe that the greatest challenge is the one for Western interests within the West African region. And by this, I mean instances of kidnappings of Western nationals and also attacks on Western economic interests. I don't think that at this point Boko Haram poses a direct threat for Western countries. I don't think the group has the desire or the capabilities at this point to stage an attack in Washington or London or elsewhere in the Western world.
Talk to us a little bit, Virginia, about what just happened, what transpired yesterday with this kidnapping. Most of the people that were kidnapped actually were children, were they not?
I'm afraid you're right, and this has become a pattern for Boko Haram. Children over the past couple of years in particular have been killed, have been abducted, have been raped. And unfortunately, what we are seeing in Cameroon indicates that there is a crescendo of activities in Cameroon. It's not a new development. Already in 2003-2004, there were the first skirmishes along the border between Nigeria and Cameroon, between Boko Haram and Cameroonian forces. But increasingly over the past few years, especially from 2012-2013, we've seen foreigners being kidnapped in Cameroon. You might remember the incident of a French family being kidnapped in early 2013, and later that year also a number of priests and a nun were kidnapped in the country. Even the wife of the deputy prime minister of Cameroon was kidnapped last year. So I think these latest developments indicate a growing determination on the part of Boko Haram to really create havoc in Cameroon.
Well, as you mentioned, the different atrocities carried out by Boko Haram, you mentioned earlier you did not believe they were going to play, at least in the immediate future, a huge role internationally. In other words, trying to attack here in the United States. Virginia, is it too far afield to say that Boko Haram would hope to have continental dominance across all of Africa?
No, I think that's a bit of a stretch. I believe that in spite of the fact that Boko Haram is indeed spreading its tentacles beyond the Nigerian border and into its neighbors, its focus and agenda remain primarily domestic. The ultimate goal of the group is to Islamize Nigeria, or at least the northern part of the country. In other words, to ensure that the territory is under Sharia law. And although it has been using a borderlands with neighboring countries, and it has been staging attacks beyond the border in its immediate neighbors, I don't think that it will pose a continental threat.
Virginia, do you think it's possible that we've had a former CIA analyst on here, and he believes that a lot of these groups are working together. So do you think it's possible that Boko Haram could reach out to other groups like ISIS, like Al-Qaeda?
Boko Haram has already reached out to Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb. This has been happening for the past few years now. It has established contacts with AQIM. They've received funding and training and also some ideological influence from AQIM. They've also cooperated with the Al-Qaeda affiliates that were active and are still to some extent active in northern Mali and neighboring countries.
So with that in mind, should the U.S. be doing more? Should we be intervening more to assist the Nigerian government?
Well, the United States is already present across the Sahel region with a number of initiatives that have a military, but also a diplomatic and economic angle. And they've been supplying Nigeria with advisors and also providing some training. And this is something that also the British government, for instance, a very close partner of Nigeria, have been doing for some time. France has also been increasingly involved across the Sahel region and has now stationed several troops, or a number of troops across a few Sahelian countries. However, I do believe that although the local security forces would benefit from Western support, any effort has to be successful, has to be Africa-led.
Virginia, the perception here, at least my personal perception, is that Boko Haram, in the nations in which it operates, can basically attack with impunity. The reaction of the Nigerians has not exactly been coordinated. We've seen penetration of their military by Boko Haram. Now, obviously, this organization is not a group of supermen, but are they essentially able to attack with impunity? There's a minute left, ma'am. I'll give you the final word.
Well, I'm afraid in a number of cases they have. The Nigerian forces have recorded some success. However, the Boko Haram in the main operates in areas that are not really under government control. Hence, they are able to launch their attacks with impunity.
Well, it is a sobering sight, and while the world concentrated over the past couple of weeks on what was going on in Europe, we cannot forget the horrible scenes coming out of Africa and the horrible actions of Boko Haram. Virginia Comolli, the research fellow at the International Institute for Strategic Studies, we thank you for your time and your insights. We hope you'll come back and join us in the days ahead as we continue to monitor what transpires with Boko Haram. And we do appreciate Virginia's time as she Skyped in today from London. When we come back, attorney Alan Dershowitz updates us on the international dispute between Israel and Hamas, and also a personal note from Alan. That's straight ahead.
Topping your Newsmax Now update, angry demonstrators wave U.S. flags outside a Muslim rally in Texas. You can see them right here. Protesters say they're furious over the fact that the event was held inside a building owned by the local school district. Meanwhile, protests against the magazine Charlie Hebdo continue to spread. This one in Afghanistan, where you can see people burning flags and chanting death to France. And it's a selfie heard all around the universe. Miss Lebanon now claims that Miss Israel interfered with a photo op and snapped this selfie. This after she received backlash for the image.
We're going to the Super Bowl!
And the Seattle Seahawks are headed back to the championship game. They'll face the New England Patriots in Super Bowl 49, Sunday, February 1st. I'm Miranda Kahn. We'll have another update at the top of the hour.